Hello, adorable charms. You're most welcome to Everything Literature, where you get to learn about everything concerning drama, prose, the most inspiring poetry. Take a seat and enjoy.
Our focus for today's class will be on interrogating poetry. Just like pictures, poetry also speaks. So we can speak to poetry, or better still, ask questions. Once again, you're most welcome to Everything Literature. And based on the concept of today's class, it is not quite easy to box poetry into a specific definition. Either based on a functional or aesthetic perspective, poetry has to do with expressing thoughts and feelings in the best way possible and with the best choice of words possible. Defining poetry. The only statement we can make about poetry with absolute certainty is that good poetry employs what is known as compressed language. That is, it says a lot with few words. Every word is important. The poets choose their words only after careful consideration, and we must understand each word in order to grasp the meanings of our poems. Most people claim that they do not understand poetry because of the word compression. Poetry's compressed language can be compared to a zip file. To get to the file within, the file must be unzipped by extracting. So we have to do some extraction when we are dealing with poetry. Now, in understanding poetry, we must know that we cannot get through poetry by simply skimming and scanning. Poetry actually invites us to relax, sit quietly, and think. That is, we need to think in words, think in numbers, and think in symbols. In mathematical computations, speed and accuracy are invaluable, but in poetry appreciation, they are useless. When you need to read a poem several times, you should not be frustrated or feel like a failure because you actually need to read a poem several times. It's not if you're going to read it, it's when you have to read it several times. Okay? Because this is actually the standard operating procedure for the study of any art form. Understanding of language in poetry, because poetry actually makes use of language to express thoughts and feelings. The primary distinction between practical and literary use of language is that individual words are used more fully in literature, particularly in poetry. To understand this, we must look at the structure of the word, because word is actually the basic unit of every language. Okay. The average word is made up of three parts: sound, denotation, and connotation. For each word, it starts as a series of tones and noises produced by the lips, tongue, and throat, for which the written word is a notation. So what we say is actually produced in the form of a sound, and what we write down is actually referred to as notation. However, this notation differs from a music note or a noise in that it has a meaning. So when we write particular word down, 2-letter words, 3-letter words, 4-letter words, whatever the number may be, it actually has a meaning. And this meaning is actually the most fundamental component. This is actually referred to as the denotation. That is the dictionary meaning or meanings of a word. Beyond the denotative or denotation meaning of a word may have connotations in addition to its denotations. The connotations are what it implies beyond what it expresses in the dictionary, its meanings, overtones. It acquires these connotations, that is, a word acquires these connotations as a result of its past history and associations, as well as the manner and circumstances in which it has been used. Individual words are given more meaning in poetry through imagery, connotation, and symbolism. So poetic language is figurative. That's one of the things we have to know. Language is used to appeal to one or more of the five senses. Talk about sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. So these three actually interrelate. We have the poetry, the concept of imagery in poetry, the concept of connotation, and the concept of the use of symbols. Poetry's imagery creates unique and colorful descriptions. Connotation is crucial to the poet because it allows him to concentrate or enrich his meanings, saying more in few words. Then we have the concept of symbolism. The use of symbols to represent ideas, experiences, or feelings is known as symbolism. Why should we take time to read, study, and analyze poetry? By analyzing poetry, we gain valuable critical thinking skills that can be applied to other fields of study, looking at science, accounting, medicine, and a variety of other careers. Okay? And it may be quite difficult, honestly, to understand a poem at first, or for those who are not in the field of literature. But honestly, there are some basic practice to understanding a poem, which makes it very simple. Number one, read a poem silently, then out loud. Okay? So before you get to read a poem out loud, you can read it quietly, or should I say silently, by lip reading. Reason for reading out poems out or silently, or reading out poems silently or out loud, is because meaning is in the sound and the print. Okay? The second is that you paraphrase the poem. That is, rewrite in your own words in paragraphs. So without getting into what the poem is all about, once you read it out loud the first and the second time, or the third time, you can try to rewrite. Okay, the poem this talks about this, it's actually deals with this. Just try to write out something. You may be wrong, you may be right. There's really no right or wrong way to read at first when you're appreciating a poem. Okay. Number 3 is that pay careful attention to the words, the grammar, the punctuations, and the structure. When we talk about structure, we mean the meter, the rhyme, and the rhythm. Okay, you may not really pay too much attention to the meter and the rhyme and the rhythm yet, because you may have to understand some sort of meter, but they are very important in understanding the full concept about poetry. Okay, identify the specific setting of time and place. Okay, this is not really all the time attached to a poem or in understanding a poem, because some poems you may not get to understand the time and place when they were written, or the place may be indicated in the poem itself and the time may be indicated. Okay, now number 5, this is actually one of the best ways to start in understanding a poem, which is consider the poem's title. Okay, from the title alone, you can have a full clue into what a poem is all about. Number 6, consider the poem's diction. What are the choice of words? What are the words that are being repeatedly used in the poem? What kind of words are being used in the poem? And number 7, identify any figures of speech. Wow. Number 8, consider the tone of the poem. Okay, this is quite related to number 6, which is consider the poem's diction. By the time you look at the diction, that is the choice of words in the poem, you'll be able to know what kind of tone. And in order to know the tone, you need to read out the poem. That is where number 1 comes into play. Yes, meaning of a poem is in the sound and in the print. Okay, so when we want to interrogate a poem, interrogation is actually a medium of asking questions. Okay, trying to find out what is what and how something is. Okay, so we'll take a look at these basic questions that we ask our poem. What is the poem talking about? This talks about the theme or the content. How is it written or said? This has to do with the language and the style, the diction, the tone, and the mood. 3, how does it appear in terms of the form and the structure, that is the printout? Do we have the poem appearing in the form of diagram? Okay, how many lines, how many stanzas, and the likes? Okay, how beautiful poetically is it in terms of the choice of words, the figures of speech, the literary devices being used, where the commas are being used as caesura, where full stops are applied, the use of exclamation marks, and the likes. Why is it written? Okay, so this has to do with the background. Okay. Number 6, when and where was it written? This has been disclosed earlier, that so the when and where may not really be obviously stated by the poem, but we can get to know when we study the poem. Okay, and with this, we're going to take a look at our sample poetry, a sample poem reading by me. The title is "Joy Has No Joy Anymore." Okay, I can tell you, joy is no gain anymore. I can tell you, those memories are but ghosts, haunting me like mosquitoes at night. Ever wondered how young lovers can suddenly turn wildflowers? Mild was I before he gunned down my guard, my innocence. But wild have I become since I broke his head and their hearts. One is battered and broken, and the others damaged. So if we are to understand this poem, we should know that we cannot just get it by reading it the first time. We need to read it again. Joy has no joy anymore. I can tell you, joy is no gain anymore. I can tell you, those memories are but ghosts, haunting me like mosquitoes at night. Ever wondered how young lovers can suddenly turn wildflowers? Mild was I before he gunned down my guard, my innocence. But wild have I become since I broke his head and their hearts. One is battered and broken, and the others damaged. Okay, so in order to get a poem, understand the poem very well, you don't really have to rush. We just have to pay attention to the choice of words very well, starting from the title itself. Okay, so if we take a look at the title, we can see that some certain words have been underlined for us in analyzing this poem. We can see the word joy being underlined, and the other joy being underlined, and the word anymore being underlined. Okay, so joy with a capital letter J has no joy. To this joy this time around has to do with a small letter J. So the first joy more or less like a proper noun, and the second joy has to do more or less like an abstract noun. Okay, anymore more or less like an indicator that okay, the person called Joy once had joy before, but does not have joy anymore, or has no joy anymore. Okay, so we've already tried to interact or interrogate. Try to interrogate the title. Joy has no joy anymore. Why is joy not having joy anymore? Okay, so now we have the poet persona trying to tell us, I can tell you, joy is no gain anymore. That is, having this person like having no gain anymore. Okay, I can tell you, those memories are both ghosts. Look at the word ghost. Okay, haunting me like mosquitoes at night. Mosquitoes at night are quite terrific things to witness at night. Okay, the word haunting being underlined. Ever wondered how young lovers can suddenly turn wildflowers wild there, flowers meant to be wild. Okay, mad was I before he gunned down. So that's like an imagery of someone coming down with a gun, and this time around actually attacking the guard and the innocence of the poet persona. But wild have I become since I broke his head and their heart. One is battered and broken, and the others damaged. Okay, we may have to sit back, just as it has been said earlier. Sit back, relax, and get to think about the poem. What could these be talking about? So, and that leads us to the first question. What is the poem talking about? Now, if we take a look at the poem very well, the poem actually discusses the ordeal of the poem persona, whose name possibly is Joy, as someone who, due to some certain psychological related problems or trauma, has undergone both an emotional damage and a cause and effect kind of transformation from being mild to being loud. Okay, so in summary, it's about a person called Joy who has actually gone through emotional damage or psychological trauma. Okay, how is this poem reading in terms of the language and the style? The choice of words used is simple. Words such as memories, haunting, ghost, wildflower, young lovers convey the emotional state of the persona, someone who is experiencing or has experienced a kind of emotional damage. This is reflected in words such as gone down, the damaged part of the emotion, gone down, guard, innocence, and also from the words broken and battered and damaged. Okay, the tone of the poem, which has to do with the attitude of the writer, is quite negative in such a bitter, angry, and critical mode. The mood of the poem portrays a kind of atmosphere of an emotional damage. Take note of the word atmosphere, okay, relating to the act. Now, next is how does it appear? How does the poem appear? The poem consists of one stanza, which is made up of 8 lines. It is also a free verse, narrative poem, or a persona poetry. Okay? And if we take a look at the next question, which is why is it written or said as such, or why does it appear as such? Now, we have to take note that in the background of most poetry like this, or most poems of this nature, are actually regarded as lyric poem or lyric poetry. A lyric poem often expresses the poet's personal thoughts and feelings. Okay, so the poem can be regarded as a lyric poem. Okay, and at the same time, it's a narrative poem because it's a narrative story of a particular character called Joy who has no joy anymore because of some certain things. Okay, the next question is when was it written in terms of the setting? This kind of poem, this particular poem, can be described as a poem written possibly at a time when there is a need to create awareness for causes and cure for emotional damage in the 21st century. But did you notice that we already skipped a particular question? That is the 4th question. How beautiful poetically is it? So how or what makes it beautiful as a poem? This is very important because you have to be familiar with some certain figures of speech in order to best appreciate a poem, the beauty of a poem. I can tell you, joy is no gain anymore. I can tell you, those memories are but ghosts. So the first part, the one highlighted in blue, I can tell you, they refer to as natural. Okay, the repetition of the same phrase successively at the beginning of successive lines. Okay, then lie to this is actually used in joy is no gain. The word no there reflects the lie to this. Those memories are a ghost. That's a metaphor. That is, memories are being compared to ghosts. Then we have enjambment being used, which means run on line, in the sense that ghost is not actually the end of the second line. The second line actually runs into the third line. Haunting mean like mosquitoes at night. So haunting there is a continuation of the second line. Okay, then we have simile being used. That is, like mosquitoes at night, trying to describe or compare the haunting nature of the memories as ghosts to what it looks like. It looks like the way mosquitoes actually disturbs at night. Okay, then we have ever wondered how young lovers can suddenly turn wildflowers? This is actually a very good example of rhetorical question. Okay, so a question is being asked there, not necessarily with the intention to get a response from the reader, okay, but it's just to make the reader think critically. Okay, that is, what do you think young lovers can suddenly turn wildflowers, just become best enemies or worst enemies, so to say? Mild was I, is actually an inversion. Okay, because the normal way it's meant to be structurally or grammatically, it should be I was mad. Okay, then mad was out before he gunned down my God, my innocence. So he gunned down my God, my innocence. That's metaphor, trying to compare God with innocence. Okay, and the next one happens to be an inversion as well. But what have I become? That's an inversion, because it ought to be I have become wild. Okay, so when you have this syntactic arrangement of words being altered, not in form of the S subject verb object or subject verb complement, we have complements, the verb, and then the subject. That's a form of inversion, or what we call hyperbaton. You can check one of the classes where they are on figures of speech to understand this better. Since I broke his head and their heart. Now this is a form of zeugma or synapsis, because we are actually using the word broke in reference to two different things. Broke, we're breaking his head, and we're breaking their heart. Okay, so the third person is actually breaking someone's head and actually breaking some other people's hearts. So there's a particular person, the third person decides to break the head of a person, and that may possibly lead to death, and decides to break the heart of some other persons, not just one person now. So the poem ends by saying, one is battered and broken. This is endaides. Okay, so endaides has to do with the way hand is used here. Okay, instead of using adjective handed now, we decided to use the two as adjective, battered and broken, and the other damaged. This brings us to the end of the poem. So we've actually taken a look at how beautifully the poem is written, okay, in terms of the use of some figures of speech, anaphora, lidotes, metaphor, simile, rhetorical question, enjambment, inversion, or what we call hyperbaton, and zeugma or synapsis, then endaides as well. I hope you really enjoyed the class, because there is no better way to understanding a poem than to interrogate the poem. Getting to ask questions. What is the poem talking about? How is it reading? How does it appear? How beautiful is it poetically? And why is it written? Or when or where was it written? If you really enjoyed the class, or you have any question, get to hear the thoughts in the comment section. If you're yet to subscribe, please do well to hit the subscription button. See you in the next class.